Okay, thank you, Stephen, and very hearty welcome to everybody who's going to spend the weekend here inside as opposed to outside in the beautiful sunshine. We will be opening the curtains later on to let you see it. I'd like to start by just trying to maybe set the scene and provide the context for our weekend's work. Of the issues that we were asked to deal with by the resolution of the Oireachtas, electoral reform was seen to be the largest and the most complex. And it was for that reason that we decided to devote 2 weekends to it. And so during our first weekend last month, we looked at our current electoral system, proportional representation using the single transferable vote, PRSTV, on the multi-seat constituency model. And just to bring it home how important and complex this is and relevant, we chose the dessert for this evening's dinner using that particular electoral system. So I think that brought home to us, just exactly what it constitutes. But we also examined in some detail 3 other potential or possible electoral systems. And at the end of the weekend, we took a vote on what we would do this weekend. And in that vote, 41% of the convention said they would like to examine the PRSTV system in more detail. But 59% voted that they not only did they want to do that, but they wanted to examine another of the 3 systems and nominated the other 3 systems, the mixed member proportional system. So this weekend, we will actually be going into more detail on both of these electoral systems, the PRSTV and what we call the mixed member proportional system. Now, it's important to realize that electoral systems, the mechanics of voting, is just one aspect of how we as a society choose to organize our political system and our governance. But there are other dimensions of our broad electoral system which are also going to be important. And you chose during the last weekend to examine 4 of these issues. The first one is the size of constituencies. And each of these issues that we will be looking at in more detail this weekend are going to have trade-offs. I mean, for example, the size of constituencies, the larger the constituency, the more proportional you will get a result in terms of seats translated into the way people vote. But equally, the larger the size of the constituency, perhaps there's a trade-off there in terms of how close the representatives are to the electorate. I mean, they would be just larger and more challenging to organise. The number of TDs is a constant matter of debate. Do we have too many or too little? But in any event, the Constitution prescribes in broad outline as the criteria, the number of electors that will elect a TD. The question of non-parliamentary ministers, whether or not there should be the possibility to have people serve in cabinet who are not members of the Oireachtas, which happens in other countries. And then a broader question of participatory democracy. I mean, are there other ways in which the citizenry of this country can be engaged in our democracy, which go, if you like, over beyond our current methods, if you like, our current model of electoral systems. So these are the 4 issues that we will be examining in addition to the 2 main electoral systems that we will be examining. And all of these 4 issues that I mentioned, were there to be changes in them, there would also need to be changes in the Constitution. Now, it's also, though, important as we begin to start this discussion to realise that the electoral system, it fits into a wider framework, if you like, of parliamentary reform. The electoral system is ultimately going to provide the parliamentarians that are there to serve the public, but then how the Parliament goes about its business, if you like, is a separate and additional matter. And essentially what this is about is how the Parliament holds government to account. And we heard from some of our experts in the last weekend that perhaps in Ireland, the system we have is not actually terribly good at holding government to account. And so looking at ways in which that extra accountability could be built into the system, such as, for example, having stronger committee systems and some other mechanisms, this is part, I think, of the debate that we will end up having. Now, I'd like to give maybe some general comment and perhaps guidance for the weekend, because I'm very conscious that we have in front of us a very potentially wide agenda. And therefore, it's my responsibility, but I think it's also your responsibility to ensure that we keep a degree of focus on the issues that we have before us on the agenda. And therefore, matters that we discussed last weekend, we will not be discussing again this weekend. Because we need to keep focus on what we have in front of us. As I would see it in terms of an outcome for this weekend, what we're being asked to look at are to decide on what are the essential differences between the two systems we are going to be looking at, the PRS-TV and the mixed member proportional. How do they differ in terms of giving an outcome which is proportional to the votes cast, the whole issue of proportionality? Are they likely to differ in terms of the type of person who will be elected? Does one system or the other system make it more or less likely for small parties or independents to be elected? And is that a good thing? What's the balance of advantage of having stronger parties and perhaps less strong independents? Would the electoral system make any difference to the type of person we choose to elect here in Ireland? There is a criticism, and it's often been made, that our current system is that it generates too much focus on the local as opposed to the national. But in fact, would using a different system make any difference there? Or are there deeper issues of our national and political culture which are going to determine the outcome of our politics? And I think we have a real issue here of making sure, and this goes back to focus, of trying to see the wood from the trees. We have to make sure we do not get too lost in detail about these electoral systems. We are not here to have, if you like, a master's or a doctoral class in electoral systems. We are asked to get a clear sense of the broad nature of the electoral systems, the likely outcome of electoral systems, and to make a choice at the end of the day as to which we think is a system which is best for the future of this country, whether it be politically, economically, socially, or culturally. And that, I think, that is ultimately, I think, what we're about, and for the weekend. And also, I think, whatever system we recommend, are there other recommendations we would make in terms of reform, which we feel would to, if you like, the political culture of this country. So that's, as I see it, is what we are faced with for the weekend. And I felt it was useful perhaps to take a little bit of time to spell out some of those thoughts at the very beginning. I have a couple of housekeeping matters to mention. You will have, again, before you the survey forms, which we are using. I can never stress sufficiently the importance of these, because we are all the time trying to improve our procedure and our process, and we use these to do that. I want to acknowledge a couple of people who are here this weekend. One in particular has travelled from Canada, Ken Carthy. He's at the back of the room. You'll see him later on. Ken is a professor in British Columbia in the University of Vancouver, and is a sort of the world leader, if you like, on systems, on processes like we are going through here in the convention. Another person who I know is a significant expert in the whole business of voting systems is Francis Jacob, who's the head of the European Parliament office in Dublin, and Francis is very welcome as well. We also will have with us a number of people who have made submissions to the convention, and for which we were all grateful. and we're very delighted that they are able to be here with us for the weekend. So that's, if you like, that's my opening. That's what I want to say at the very beginning. And the very first, we're going to move directly from me to David Farrell, who's going to explain about the mixed member proportional system. David.